Welcome everybody to Project Beshalach, a High Mitzvah community event. Reb Deb's going to talk to us about some really fun, exciting things. And we're going to have some music and some text-based conversation. And as I was saying, we have a lot of new faces here. We're really excited to welcome you. And High Mitzvah is a way of connecting with others through text-based conversation. If you'd like to know more about everything that we offer, go to our website, chaymitzvah.org. And now I'm going to turn us over to Reb Deb.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. And we have a very powerful evening planned, which is all about mayim, all about water. It's Parshat Beshalach that we'll be talking about. It's the current Parsha, the Parsha that we will be studying this week. And so it's a very timely scheduling for this particular topic. And what I'd like to do is begin with a little bit of an overview on water. But you know a lot about water, but this is water from a Jewish perspective. So this is water with a Jewish drip on it. And I'd like to talk about some of the key facts about water. And know that
and believes in text-based conversations.
Anybody, please mute yourself if you're not speaking, because we were kind of picking up background noise. Thanks.
Recorded, so we don't want to distort the recording. So we know that according to the ancients back in the day, that the world consists of four basic elements: fire, air, earth, and water. And this is really important because this has formed a lot of the basis of important concepts and powerful traditions in Judaism. If you think in your minds as I'm talking a little bit about how many traditions Judaism has that involve water, just, sort of float them around in the back of your mind, like mikvah, like all kinds of things such as mikvah, such as tashlich, other hand washing, the al netilat yadayim, and more and more and more, which we'll get into as I go forward. I don't want to give it away. It's just a little bit of a teaser that I started with. And water is a traditional medium that we think about when we think about a transition between worlds or between realms, if you want to. Water serves as a channel between those different realms, between earth and between heaven, is the element of water. And we don't stand alone. Judaism doesn't stand alone in that. In most religions from ancient times to the present, water is used very symbolically for rites of passage, for spiritual purification. We're not the only ones. And for sacred ceremonies. So what you could take from that is that water is an agent of change. It's an agent not only of transition, it's not only an element of transition, but it is an agent of change, because it causes matter to dissolve, and by extension, it affects the spirit as well. So water is a source of life, and it also is the medium for birth, for death, and for immortality as well. What do we do when someone dies? We do the ritual of tahara. We wash the body, we wrap the body, we sit and we do blessings. So it's a ritual of transition in so many places. And we also know that water was supposed to be the form of the world before creation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. But if you think about the creation story, think about Genesis, you know that God severed the cosmic waters from the sky and divided it into upper and lower waters. That's Torah. I mean, that's not a brilliant thought on my part. Unfortunately, it comes from the text itself. And if you think about water comes in terms of praying for the proper amount of rain in its season. It comes in dew, the form of dew, D-E-W, or in the form of rain, and sometimes very strong rains. And so those are some of the little overview thoughts on water and the sounds of water. And one of the most ancient rituals is the immersion in water, in the waters of the mikvah, the ritual bath. And the mikvah is a gathering of waters. They are moving waters. They're live waters. You don't do mikveh in a swimming pool as much as many people would like to. The water has to be moving water. And so it's the water of life. It's not stagnant, it's a water of life. It's flowing, rain or spring water, and you physically purify yourself by literally descending into that water. Mikveh is a transitional ritual. When you get married, you go to the mikveh. Before high holidays, many people go to the mikveh. When you have a life transition, perhaps you recovered from an illness, perhaps you've gotten a divorce, maybe you've retired, maybe you've moved, job, change in any kind of status in life. It's So I mentioned the hand washing blessing, which is one of the rituals, and also water was used to cleanse the temple altar, the altar of the temple. The Levites washed the hands of the Kohanim before they performed the priestly blessing, which is a high holiday ritual today in many synagogues. And we also know that Torah is considered associated with the element of water. So I wanted to stop there for a minute because I could go on and on about water. I have a lot more information. I teach a whole course for 12 weeks on water, the power of water in Judaism. So I'm pulling the best of the best from my notes and hoping to share them with you. And I will just add that water has long been associated with women for many reasons, in terms of midah, the ritual purity laws and the cleansing, and so on. So, also the wells of water. Miriam was given a well. Very powerful thing to be given a well of water. If you have given a well of water by God, you truly rate, because that water is power, that water is life. And when it is taken away, then there is a very negative consequence. So remember that we are reflecting back on Israel for a lot of this, and Israel is a society that depended on water, on rain, for its sustenance. And we recite special prayer that changes the dew for the rain in the part of the Amidah during the year. So the Torah, Mayim Chayim, the water of life. And with that, I will stop my little intro to water and ask if anything particularly struck you, or if you want to add anything about water or have any questions about the power of water before we begin to study our texts. Did you all know every one of these things about water? Or did you maybe pick up one new fact in the introduction about water? Lisa, thank you for shaking your head. I really appreciate that, because I would hope somebody would have picked up something new. So what did you pick up that was new? Can I ask you? Or what did you think?
Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my brain is still kind of not working because I had anesthesia earlier this morning.
Oh.
But just hearing as all the things that you said, you just kind of don't really realize that these are associated with water until you kind of strung them all together. So I appreciate the fact, because something in there is like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. But the whole litany, I guess, it spoke to me.
Thank you. You also, when we talk about conversion, what do people do? They go to the mikveh, right? Or you maybe adopt a child and the child isn't Jewish by birth. You take the child to the mikveh. You do all of that. So that's, it's all things to think about. Yuri, I see your hand up, your icon up.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. I wonder if you might comment, if you can, how the Hebrew use of water might differentiate from some of the other cultures, that were coming of age at that time, especially the ones in Canaan, or if I'm just curious, because it seems to be a natural in some ways, the desert and that. So I don't know, but if you have any comments on that.
So I'm thinking, and this is more off the cuff than that I have ever, can speak to this, but, the cultures that lived very much dependent on the rain and the seasonal aspects and so forth. I think many of those cultures had idols that they prayed for rain, or they prayed for good weather or for good crops, and we didn't typically have that. We prayed to God for that, that God, in our mind, God controlled the rain and the dew and the sun and the drought and so forth. So it's different. It's unique in the Jewish, or the Israelite then, culture, and now the Jewish culture. It evolved in a bit of a different way. So that would be the off my head answer for your question. Yeah, anybody else? Mark? Yeah.
Maybe we can add something that that water in Hebrew is plural, as opposed to most of Indo-European languages. And I'm reminded of a teaching from Shlomo Carlebach of blessed memory, who said, whenever someone sheds a tear, it's never one tear. It's always equivalent from God. So waters is always plural. So anyway, just.
And I thank you for that, because I think it's important to think about, when you think about water and the power of water, that the word is in the plural form, because it to me speaks to the power of water, that it is so powerful. And if we think about it today, water is running out of control in many places. It's not proper in its season, for sure. And it is also people who are in need of water are not getting clean water. The economics of class issues are depriving people of clean drinking water, or are depriving them of enough water. That is something to really think about. And that is not a trickle, that is like a flow. That's Mayim. It's flowing. It's moving. It's alive. It's alive.
Yeah, just add one little thing. It's only parentheses, and it's really short. Are you familiar with the books from Dr. Emoto? Yes, you are. Really quickly, he flash froze some water and it makes crystals like snowflakes, and that all the snowflakes are individual. And really quickly, he took water and had positive thoughts or positive words and positive, beautiful music. All the crystals were beautiful, beautifully shaped. And then other water, he had the intention of negative, you're ugly, I hate you, and everything, disturbing music. And all the flakes were misshapen. And so it's very fascinating, because the ultimate, he realizes at the end of all that, the ultimate reality is love. But more than that, as far as a Jew, when you know that you sending words or thoughts of blessings and positive thoughts, it changes the water. And so when you do a blessing before a glass of water, any liquid, or even solids, that because they all have a certain amount. So when you say a bracha, it's like it transformed that, and then you eat it. And what it does, if you decide to do a blessing to someone, you say, I love you, it just changes the water in that person. So like for me, it's like when I saw that talk about water, I was like, yes. So thank you for doing that.
Because water is very transformative, and water has a lot of, if water is alive, then what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because it would respond to how it's being cared for, how it's being addressed, how it's being interacted with. So it makes perfect sense. So other thoughts, anyone that hasn't had a chance and would like to speak about water in any way, or ask anything, or respond to anything before we go forward a little bit more? And if not, we'll go forward. We'll take our first text.
We have some music to welcome us in, and it goes exactly on what Mark was just talking about. We're talking about the power of water and the power of emotions. And, Parshat Beshalach talks about the waters parting and the Jewish people coming through, and how when our voices join together, that makes us more powerful. And also, like you were saying about how the water is affected by the music, we're going to watch this really beautiful Miriam song, which is sung by women in Jerusalem, in New York, in Kiev, in Moscow, all together. So I'm going to put that on for us, and then after that, we'll get to our first text. To pretend rolling her head, and all the women followed her, just as she had planned. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wore was one who sang our history. With every strand and every thread, she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances toward the light. And the wind dancing with their timbrels, following Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the wind dancing all night. When Miriam stood upon the shore and gazed across the sea, the wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Ever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand, and we would pass to freedom and march to the promised land. Dancing with their timbrels, following Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women dance all night. Miriam, the prophet, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her, just as she had planned. Miriam raised her voice and song she sang with praise and mind. We just lived through a miracle. We're gonna dance tonight. And the women dancing with their timbrels, following Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women dance all night long. Dancing with their timbrels, following Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women dance all night. We dance all night long.
Thank you. Well, if that was not uplifting, I don't know what is. I wanted to just dance in my seat. I just love it. Oh, you've got your tambourines. Okay. All right. That was really, really, really great. And so we want to put up our first text for discussion and have a beginning with water. So I'll turn it back to Nina to post for us, and here we go. So Parshat Beshalach, the power of water. And if that's not an active, lively picture that we just looked at, I don't know what is. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place, from which the waters flow, there they return again. So just take a look from Ecclesiastes. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the waters flow, there they return again. And the picture itself is inspiring. I think many of you know, I'm in Florida, so I went down to the beach yesterday for the first time since we got here. And I just sat and looked at the water ebbing and flowing. It was just very, very beautiful and very, very peaceful. So we have some questions about water to ponder tonight in the great philosophy of our time together. And, we are wondering, what does this quote from Ecclesiastes really say about the cycle of life? What does it teach us about cause and effect, the cycle of life, both in nature and in our actions, cause and effect? And what do we learn about the cycle of life? Do you need to see the quote again? Would you like us to put the quote back up?
People are nodding in the negative. All the waters flow to the sea. The place from which I can read it again. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the waters flow, there they return again. What does that tell us about the cycle of life and about cause and effect?
So Lisa, your hand is up, your icon.
Right. What you were, that cycle of water, cycle of life. There is a cycle of water that my daughter learned as an environmental scientist, because of how it, goes here and then trickles there and then eventually goes there to the water table and is recycled again. So when we talked about the cycle of water, it's not just what you just said or what Ecclesiastes just said. It's actually scientifically can be broken down as to how the water circulates throughout the world.
Thank you. Ayala?
So to me, it speaks about like the ebb and flow of creation, that it's happening in every moment. It's a constant flow of God's love, that, yeah, it's ongoing and always available to us.
Thank you. That was lovely. Norma?
Well, aside from it being so vital for life, we're in a season right now where we've had no snow, and that's devastating for New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, because the snow that falls where I live provides the water for the reservoirs. So the cause and effect that's going to happen if we go through a winter with no snow, there may be droughts, and there may be a lot of states, and I know in California, they're drowning in water, but we could be suffering because of a lack of water.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you said that, I mean, down here in Florida, stuff is brown. The lakes, we live in a community called Aberdeen Lakes. We have 15, if not more, lakes here. And the lakes are really, the water level is down, it's way, way down. You can see it actually when you look at the water. So I think, it's a lot of areas are suffering from a lack of water at this particular time. I wonder where that's going. Robbie?
I think, on the other hand, places that usually don't see water are seeing water. Like we had a flood in the, what was that region in California? That's a desert. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it, but it had a huge flood and people had to be rescued. Paul? You don't know? My husband, I asked him if he knew.
It was in the Sierras.
Yeah, it's the place that's the hottest. Death Valley.
Oh, okay.
Death Valley had floods. People were stuck there. Their cars were in water and they had to be rescued, which is also, we're having floods in California, and there were floods in Europe in 2022. The waters came through the cities and destroyed homes and people. And wasn't there something in Pakistan recently? So, you know, we think of a cycle of water. It comes and it goes and it evaporates and then it rains, but things aren't quite right now.
Right. I'd like to
Not
mention,
typical.
I'd like to mention what you were saying. Just last week in Auckland, New Zealand, they received the entire amount of water flow for an entire season in one day in 24 hours. They got 10 inches of rain in 24 hours. So what you're saying, that cycle is kind of off somehow within the world. But yeah, flooding in places that you wouldn't normally think of.
The balance is really disturbed. I see you, Mark, 1 second. The balance of nature is disturbed because, and part of that is that the balance of water is not, is not proper. Are we minding, are we taking care of the earth properly? What have we been charged to do in Genesis, right from the beginning of creation? And it's not going well, where we have perhaps failed in our role as stewards of the earth, according to what we're commanded to do. So I think, part of that is that the wrong places are getting the wrong amounts, and, that people are lacking and the earth is starving, and then the earth is overabundant with water. It's just very difficult. And our charge to take care of this earth is not being really carried out to the best of our ability. Mark, please go ahead.
Sorry. It's interesting how the deserts. I grew up part in the desert in Africa, and I lived in the States in Southwest, and the desert cannot absorb the water as well as, for example, Florida. Like Florida can have a massive amount of water, and the soil is used to it, but in the desert it just doesn't, and you have floods. But it reminded me when my childhood in Africa. There is the dry season and the wet season, basically. And after the dry season is extremely dry, and so much so that the first rain would really often create floods and so on and so forth. But all the kids in the neighborhood, after the first rain, we would run in the street in bathing suits and play in the mud because we were so excited, and it was like as close as a rain dance as it could be. We were ecstatic, playing, singing, laughing, and drinking the water that was falling from the sky. So it's just for me, it's an emotion. You talk about water. I think of that, and I think of Simcha Bet HaShoava and Sukkot. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go to the next text and continue the conversation because it's incremental, so it'll work. And this text tells us, text number 2, that, and it's from Rosh Hashanah chapter 2, verse 5 from Tractate Rosh Hashanah of the Talmud. Legend claims that angels are composed of a mixture of fire and water. So, and I love that image. It's particularly powerful because it really represents those elements in just a stark way against the black background. It's just magnificent. I just love it. And if we think about that, and we know that our bodies are made up of more than 60% water, what is it saying? What does it mean to you, perhaps, that angels are composed of a mixture of fire and water? Any thoughts on that? Does it give them any particular qualities that we may be able to count on them for? Imagine the angels, if you believe in them. Judy?
I'm hearing.
Did she freeze? Yes, she froze. Okay, angels composed of fire and water. Anybody else want to pick it up until Lori?
I'll jump in. It's not so much the fire and water as the duality, as in when I think of fire and water, my mind immediately goes to good and bad, or the Yetzer HaTov, so the back and forth and the duality. And I never really thought about that with angels per se, but just the fact that there's two parts to everything. The water comes from the ocean, it returns to the ocean. You pick up water, becomes mist, dew, and then it drops in the mountains and the river brings it back to the ocean. So again, the duality really strikes me with the angels.
And also, the fact that too much fire will be very destructive, too much water also very destructive. They're made up of both elements, so they must represent some kind of a heavenly balance because they're messengers of God and they bring down certain teachings and information to different people on earth. So Judy, it looks like you're back in the game. Go ahead. Did you want to unmute and share?
I appreciate.
Yeah, we're losing you. We don't have sound for you. Okay.
Perhaps if she closes her video, she'll have enough internet so that her voice comes through, because that sometimes helps for me. Just a thought.
Want to try that, Judy?
I'm sorry, I'm having internet instability. I couldn't hear Lori on her last piece.
Okay. Did you want to contribute on angels, anything?
No, I just said the part. I agree about the duality. I just hadn't thought about angels that way. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to think more about this.
Thank you. So anyone else about the angels, and also a question and an opinion question, if people would like to share, what would it be like? What would it feel like for you to interact with an angel? And if you met one, what would you want to know? You get 5 minutes with an angel. What do you want to know? What would you want to ask them? What would you want to learn from them? Anybody care to share? And we promise we won't make fun of you. So.
Wait, while you're thinking about your answers, I just want to tell you that Julian said something very interesting. The angels, if angels live in heaven, it makes sense as Shemayim, heaven equals fire. Water, shin plus mayim. Shin is the fiery letter and ends the word Aish. So I just thought that was something to share because she put it in the chat box and it was very interesting.
Beautiful.
Okay. Now back to the question about meeting an angel, because this is something.
Have you ever wanted to meet an angel? And if you did, what would you say to him or her? And what would you want to know? I could have a whole, I could spend, go to Panera with an angel and have a pretty great afternoon with all the things I'd want to know. But I mean, if you embrace angels in whatever form, either in the literal form or in the good and negative and positive inspiration or, inclination, what would you want to know? A lot of hands are up here. Okay. Betty, I see you first, and then Lisa.
Hi. I have met an angel, and because of the circumstances, I wasn't prepared to ask any questions. I was just grateful for the assistance. It happened in an airport parking lot, and some guys had sort of taken advantage of my naivety and wanted to use my car battery to start their car, and they blew up my battery. And then suddenly they couldn't speak English after they did that. And I'm standing there, a 20-some-year-old, just out of my element. And suddenly an angel appeared and started talking to me and talked to these guys in their own tongue. And at the end of the experience, the angel got my car started, told me how much it would cost to have it repaired, had the men give me the money, and just as suddenly as that angel appeared, that angel was gone. There were no footsteps, there was nothing. It was just the most, my niece was with me, and this happened probably 50 years ago, but it's something we'll never forget.
Thank you for that really inspiring story. Thank you. And how lucky for you. Lisa?
Yes.
For me, to ask an angel, I would want to know, how is it that you, and this is a good, how is it that you help humans in their lives? And Betty's story was a perfect example, really. Why do you help people in their lives? What is it that motivates you? Is it something that God is telling you to do? Is it just like the angel king saying, go take care of all this? It just seems that they're there. And same thing, there are various times in my life that I did not see an angel, but you knew that there was some kind of comforting presence around the situation that you were dealing with, and it helps to calm you a little bit. So I don't know, we refer to that as angels. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But yeah, I don't want to sit down and say, hey, what is your role here, guys? What do you do? How's it help everybody? Why do you help everybody? So that's what I want to know while I'm sitting in Panera.
Thank you. I think, what I would want to know is, what is it like to live in such close proximity with God and to be one of God's worker bees, if you want to, refer to them as that. And what does it feel like knowing that you're put here for one task that you will do when God sends you to do that, and then your life is over, your existence is over because you're put here for one thing. And what does it feel like for that time that you're here, knowing that soon you won't be here if you do the job properly? You will no longer exist. So those are the things I would want to know. I think it would be a lengthy conversation, but these are all things I'm curious about. Anybody else, if you were talking with an angel, what you might want to know or what you might want to ask them? And if not, we'll go on. Okay, let's go to the next. And we have a nice text for next for conversation.
Wait, Mark raised his hand.
Is your hand up? No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
From the book of Ezekiel, chapter 43, verse 2. Water was the primordial form of the world before creation. The roar of mighty waters is the sound of God's voice. Water was the primordial form of the world before creation. The roar of mighty waters is the sound of God's voice. What does it mean to you? Simple question. What is that text? What does it say to you? I will tell you it says a lot. Think about it. And does it have any personal meaning for you?
It's far from a simple question.
Yes, never said a simple question, but do you have any thoughts? And I see Robbie's hand is up too. So Norma, did you want to speak more, or shall I ask Robbie? And I'll go to Robbie and Lisa. Go ahead, Robbie.
Water is a source of life. We can't live without water. And I think it is the basis of our life. The other interesting thing was in the story of creation, it says that God spreads the land over the waters. And we know from scientific studies that at one time, all the continents on Earth were one continent. And they spread out. And you can see how they would fit together. My grandkids were making chalk drawings on the sidewalk, and the older child showed the continents, and the younger one just had one blob. And he said, studies showed that that's where the dinosaurs were. He's a dinosaur fan. So, but it's interesting that that actually happened, and we know the tectonic plates are moving and that sort of thing. So I just think, you know, this is very, how shall I say? Oh, the other thing I might want to mention is that we lost a glacier here in Washington. It's
Oh,
no longer in existence.
whoa.
Yeah, it melted. And it's happening all over the world. I'm sorry, I sort of went off on a tangent. I apologize.
Well, I'll add something to that in a moment, but Lisa, please, you're next, and then Lori.
Uh, you were saying that you were at the beach yesterday. You're bringing in the water and just being calmed by it. For me, the same thing. If I can finally get to the ocean, just hearing the crash and the ebb and the crash and the ebb and just the sound of the water it just soothes my soul. As well as if you're at a waterfall and just hearing the water going and going and going and seeing it, because a lot of the water is visual. If you think about it, part of it that gets to us is the fact that we're seeing it and hearing it at the same time, and it has such a powerful effect. So I'm, quote, I'm a Cancer, I'm supposedly a water baby, quote, quote. If you're do that, but water has always been a big draw to me, specifically oceans and rivers.
Yeah, I'm under the same zodiac sign, so it means a lot to me as well. Lori?
So the first thing that I thought when you read the quote, Reb Deb, was that the sound of God's voice in mighty waters. And I think about when I go to sleep at night and I'm, after I do some nighttime prayer, meditation, I can't sleep. The first thing I do is I want to put on my sound machine. And the sound that is the most comforting to me is sounds of lakes, right? Sounds of, the water, the river trickling, the ocean waves. And that is, it's like right up there with the sound of God when I hear the sound of the water. And the other thing that really comes to my mind is when Disney World opened in Florida, when Epcot around the world opened, they have that beautiful world showcase. They had people from every country that was represented in the world showcase, and they brought the children from all the different lands, and they asked them to all pour water at the same time as they created their lake. So that water from all over went into their lake. And I get it that Disney World is a, fantasy and a made up place, but I think it speaks to the fact that we all want to connect across the world with each other in a way that is just a foundation. And water does that for us. It is the foundation. And I'm reminded our bodies are 62 to 68% water. And so I just think that is such a powerful quote about the sound of God through water.
And I will tell you that we have a sound machine also, and we have it set to water every night of our lives. It plays, it's either rain or the ocean or, something with fountain. And outside my back patio, there's a little lake here, and it has a fountain that is in the middle of it. And the fountain runs all the time. It's beautiful. It just, shoots up and you can see it. Sometimes it catches the rainbow. And I sit and I listen to this fountain all day when I'm sitting outside. And one day last week, the fountain stopped. I was literally beside myself. I said to my husband, we have to call management. The fountain is stopped. I mean, it's just gone. And he said, Deb, the lake is low and maybe they need to clean it or something. And I was just beside myself. And, within a day, the fountain came back. And I said to him, all is right with the world now because you can hear the water. So I think there's a lot in there, for people. But I just wanted to mention, if I might, in between texts here, that I'm editing a book called Our Fractured Planet. And we're looking for any kind of poetry or stories or reflections on the changing climate change, and the elements, all the elements of climate. And so, anyone that feels they might want to write a short piece, and we're not looking for long things, you can reach me, or Nina can tell you how to reach me. I'll put my my email in the text if I can.
I'll put it in the follow-up email so that people will know.
Manuscripts for another month, and the manuscript does not have to be long. It could be a poem, it could be your thoughts, it could be a short story, it could be a prayer, and it could be anything. And if you have any friends who might want to submit and get published, please have them reach out to me. So I want to go on to our next text number 4. And this is a very nice text. Has a little bit more description to it. And it says, perhaps somebody would like to read this text. I can only see some of you, but if someone would like to read, just go right ahead.
One day, while sitting by a brook, Rabbi Akiva noticed a steady trickle of water hitting a rock. It was only a drip, but it was constant, drop after drop after drop. Akiva observed something incredible. A hole had been carved out by that steady drip of water. He wondered how that could be, and he concluded, if something as soft as water can carve a hole in solid rock, how much more so can words of Torah, which is hard as iron, make an indelible impression on my heart.
Thank you so much. The story is truly an inspiring one, short, but I think it packs a message, and I'm wondering how this story might inspire any of you. The entire group of us cannot be speechless. It's just never happened before. What do you
One thing I'm thinking about is how different this image of water is from some of the other images of water we had. And maybe we want to look at that before we take our inspiration from this story.
What does it tell you about water, Mark?
Well, it's that story about Rabbi Akiva is like I really love, just to begin with. So thank you for sharing it and reminding us about it. But it reminds me of something else about the power of water and related to Torah, related to prophecy, and how in our tradition, prophecy, Jewish prophets, like from the Bible, would experience prophecy in the Holy Land. But Ezekiel was at one point out of the Holy Land, and he did experience prophecy, but he had his feet in the water, and the water is coming from the Holy Land. So this is how he had the inspiration, divine inspiration. And so you see the whole relation between Torah, the words of Torah, and prophecy through water.
And again, it's a connecting medium between the two elements or two things that you are talking about. Robbie, I see you.
Water is extremely strong. It does make a hole in a rock, depending on what the rock is made out of, but it's a very, very powerful force. It creates the Grand Canyon. It creates all sorts of things within our environment. It's very strong, as the Torah is strong, and it is written on your heart. The words that God gave us can be written on your heart. I think that's part of the Shema.
Thank you. That was really beautiful what you said. Anyone have any additional thoughts to add before I raise another question for discussion? I think there was a hand going up. Mark, is this a new hand up? Go ahead, please. Yeah, please.
I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want to talk too much, but this drop of water, apart from Chinese water torture, it reminds me of another teaching from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, when the two angels come and visit Abraham, Abraham says, let's take a little bit of water, to wash their feet. And so he says, how could that be? He's slaughtering a cow, an ox for each one of them, and so like he's saving water suddenly when he's doing his sumptuous meal. Like, what's the deal here? And so he goes like this. He says, it's because we all know that water is a symbol of Torah. And it says just one little drop of water, one little drop of Torah is like the biggest dynamite, and it has the power to change and transform you in the strongest way. So it's also anyway.
It's a lovely image, because you imagine a drop of water or the drops of dew that fall in the proper season, and those are drops of Torah that really help transform our lives. If we can take them in, if we can open our mouths and take in the dew as it falls, and take in the drops of Torah, we can change not only ourselves, but we could change the world. So thank you for that. That was just a beautiful, beautiful interpretation. And in the story, here water is portrayed in this story. In the previous story, it's portrayed a little bit differently, the previous quote, I should say. And so if we look at the two different descriptions of water, here in the Rabbi Akiva story, drop by drop as it carves a hole, and before that, in the roar of the mighty waters is the sound of God's voice. Does anyone have any thoughts or comparisons about those? Lisa, you're gone, but your hand is here.
Hold on, I'm coming back. Does it work? There it went. Drops of water. First off, when I was about 6, you go to the caves. You go underneath the ground, and you're explained that this one dropped very slowly. Oh goodness, it's doing again. Dropped very slowly, and then it made this little mound underneath as it dropped. As well as the same age, I went outside every time there was a thunderstorm when I was visiting in Oklahoma, because I could see actually at that time, the wonderfulness of God by the lights, but that I could also dance around and get the drops of rain in my mouth. So at a very young age, and a lot of people, understand the stalactite, stalagmite, how that one drop of water can really do a lot over such a long period of time.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on these two texts that we just studied, and any thoughts on water that you would like to contribute as we close the evening? Any inspiration that you've gotten from the evening in terms of water that you might want to share? And yeah. Norma?
Water is very cleansing, and it washes away the schmutz of life and the schmutz in our lives. And I recall my experience in the mikveh. I had gone through a very difficult time with my son and ex-husband, and just it washed everything away. It took away all, for lack of another word, it took away the schmutz, and God was there with me, no question about it. So that it was like coming out with a clean slate, as a matter of fact, the rabbi gave me a beautiful, clean white towel when I came out. But that's what water is. It's rejuvenating, it's life, it's Torah, and all the rest is commentary.
And, to add a PS to yours, when people come up from, conversion in the mikveh, and I'm there at the mikveh, I call out kosher. I mean, they're done. That means it is complete, it's kosher, it's pure, it's separate, it's clean, it's good. So I just want to thank everybody for a very lively discussion tonight, and a very meaningful discussion. Thank you everyone for your contributions and your sharing. And for those that didn't, that listened, I know you were actively listening because I could see it on your faces, and you were soaking in the Mayim Chaim, the waters of life from tonight. Nina, thank you for the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful renderings of all of the things that all of the quotes that we looked at and interpreted, and the music. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Reb Deb. This was great so much.
I hope to see people for our next events coming down the pike. Do we want to push any words, or are we sending those out in the letter?
I'll send them in the follow-up email because I can't remember offhand. But we do have another one coming in March.
Yeah,
We also, of course, have our other Chai Mitzvah groups. For those of you who haven't been here before, we have one on Musar and one on the 10 Commandments, and one on what else do we have?
Rosh Chodesh.
Thank you, Rosh Chodesh. And you're certainly, if you have not been here before, invited very much to join those as well. I'll give you a link in the follow-up email. And I see that Lisa says, I love our times together learning, and so do I. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so very, very much. Be well, stay safe, stay warm and dry.
Hugs and shalom, everyone.
Hugs.